Hello, everyone, and welcome to Education in Focus, powered by Chalkboard News. I'm Dan McCaleb, Vice President of News and Content at the Franklin News Foundation, publisher of chalkboardnews.com. Chalkboard is a news website dedicated to issues related to K-12 education. And joining me again today is Brendan Clary, Chalkboard's K-12 editor. How are you, Brendan?
I'm doing well, Dan. How about you?
I am doing well, thank you. We are recording this on Monday, November 6th. Brendan, you wrote an interesting story recently about a program within the Chicago Public School District known as the Quiet Time Program, where instructors encourage students to participate in, and I'm quoting your story here, transcendental meditation, which includes initiation rites conducted in a darkened classroom. During 2 class periods every day, students were expected to meditate, but students also were given a mantra to recite and were instructed not to tell their parents about it. A student who talked to you about this program sued the school district over it and won. Tell us about the program, what it was for, and the students' concerns.
Yeah, so the program, at a basic level, I think the idea was, how do we reduce stress for some of these school districts where, maybe there's a lot of different difficulties that students face. And that was sort of the understanding, I think, behind the program, that, if we can reduce stress, that we can reduce some of these negative outcomes in terms of academics, truancy, fighting in the school districts, those kinds of things. I think that was the goal of the program, is how do we reduce stress? In fact, I've seen that from what's called the David Lynch Foundation. So David Lynch, I think, is a peace activist, or has had some sway and created and is really into transcendental meditation, and created a foundation to sort of spread that and nationalize it. And I found, a 2016 Smithsonian Magazine article that said, that was sort of the goal, is to broaden up this quiet time program and to test it out and see, does it actually help with some of these outcomes? But part of that then is, you're trying to, with the school district's knowledge and awareness and assistance, take these students to a darkened classroom and do what's called a puja initiation ceremony.
What is that?
So it is, it's like kind of core, I guess, to the transcendental meditation process. So I was reading the legal filing, the complaint, right? And this is what Mariyah Green and her lawyers allege. And there's other students as well. But, it includes like the repetition of phrases like an invocation to Lord Narayana, Brahma, the creator. I mean, just like some of this like Hindu deity with like different mantras of like offering a flower to the lotus feet of Sri Guru Dev, I bow down, and all this stuff. And I think a lot of this is in Sanskrit, so students don't know what's going on necessarily. And the complaint alleges, this is purposely kept from students. So if students ask questions about what are you saying or what am I doing, that the instructors were purportedly told, do not tell them what's going on, just distract. And so that was what raised red flags from Mariyah Green, the former student who I talked to in the lawsuit in which the Chicago Public Schools entered into judgment. And I can get more into what that actually means later. But essentially, she said that she was told a mantra from a instructor, and that instructor said, don't tell anybody about this word and don't tell your parents. And she said that was an instant red flag, like somebody at school in a darkened classroom with like a sort of an altar with a picture of a man on it who she does not recognize. And, she has somebody saying, she said, an instructor said, do not tell your parents about this. So, that's part of how that was in practice. And so I guess part of that was to try to, help them on their meditation journey and quiet their minds, I guess.
Okay, so I can understand why it would raise a red flag. Anytime an educator tells a student, don't tell your parents, you got to wonder why not? What's wrong with that? But so quiet time, as this program is known as, when I had young kids, when my kids were much younger, we used to have quiet time at home. We used to play the quiet game where first one who talked was, and that was more for parents' mental health, more so than kids' mental health. But Mariyah Green, the student you talked to who sued Chicago Public Schools over this, she was a junior in high school when this was going on. So that's, I don't know, that seems a little bit unusual for me. And she did sue the school, and I don't know if you could call it a win or what you call it, but the school district settled with her and other students, correct?
Well, so it settled with another student, and with her it entered into judgment, which I think is basically saying the Chicago Schools District maintains that it's not liable, and in a statement that is sent to me said we didn't say that we did anything wrong, and in that entering judgment, Mariyah Green's lawyers, they were a little bit more willing to say they didn't contest anything that was in the complaint, right? But at the same time, it's sort of like this quasi. It's not quite a settlement, but so it's sort of like we're not saying that this isn't true, but we're entering into a judgment, so we're going to pay the $75,000 in damages that you've asked for, essentially. And the David Lynch Foundation, I think, paid that as well. And so I should mention that the David Lynch Foundation was partnering with the University of Chicago for this quiet time program and sort of overseeing it. And it's been implemented in other school districts besides the Chicago Public Schools, including the San Francisco Unified School District. I found a brochure from the David Lynch Foundation that, said that they had wide implementation there. So a number of different schools, the principals, administrators, teachers are all sort of broadly told how to use it, and students are encouraged to participate. And so that was like a big issue in 2016 as well. So a while ago, but this has been around a little while. It's interesting to sort of see the First Amendment aspects of this coming to the fore in this judgment, right?
Mariyah is Christian, right? And she felt, and the others, or attorneys anyway, felt that this was a violation of her First Amendment rights. They were told to recite this mantra. There was some forms of the Hindu religion aspects to it. So she essentially sued on religious grounds. Do you know if the school district is still utilizing this program?
No, it's not. And I asked Mariyah's lawyers about that and the school district. And yeah, so they no longer are using this. I believe in 2019 or 2020, they stopped implementing it. And Mariyah's lawyers said it was in response to some complaints from students, like a Christian student and a Muslim student saying, besides Mariyah, saying, this is problematic. And so then they stopped implementing it. As for other school districts, I'm not exactly sure. And that's something I want to look into, right, and see like how many of those are still using it. Are there partnerships with the David Lynch Foundation for this? Are there liabilities sort of waiting, opening up these school districts to lawsuits? I'm not exactly sure how many school districts are still using it, but yeah, that we know that they have in the past, and we know the Chicago public school districts did that in the past.
Well, thanks, Brennan. We are out of time, but certainly an interesting topic. Public schools, aren't supposed to be dabbling in religion when it comes to teaching students stuff. So interesting story, interesting outcome. But as I said, we are out of time. Listeners can keep up with all stories related to K-12 education at chalkboardnews.com. For Brennan Clary, I'm Dan McCaleb. Please subscribe. Thanks for listening.